So, welcome to this episode of our live stream. My name is Brian from The Fearless Man, and we're going to talk literally about specific questions that people have sent in. I think my earpiece is hung up a little bit here. Hold on one second. Much better. Okay, so we're going to go over some specific questions people sent in. I've got 7 of them here, and if we have time, we're going to take some more. I'm going to try to keep this about an hour. If you have any other questions, feel free to put them into the chat box. I can't see it right now, but Kyra over here will let me know when they come in at the end of the call, and we'll see if we get to some of those too. But we're talking specifically about the nice guy syndrome. We're talking, stop shaking the screen here, hold on. The stand is a little wobbly. Okay, we're talking specifically about the nice guy syndrome here. We've had a lot of questions. People don't understand the nice guy syndrome, don't understand what I mean by some of the points. So I got a list of questions here people have written in comments, and I'm going to go through those first. And number one, actually I'm going to go to is the last one on this list, because it really kind of covers the whole topic in general. The question is a real general question about the nice guy that helps you get to understanding the basic principle, why being a nice guy with beautiful women doesn't work, why being a nice guy in life doesn't work, why being a nice guy keeps you stuck. It'll get you to a certain level, but then usually you can't go beyond that. And a lot of guys don't even get to that level because of it. So this question is I'm still having a hard time understanding what you mean by stopping the nice guy syndrome, especially with women. I want to make women happy. I want them to be happy around me. How do I start moving in that direction without trying to please them in order to like me? Stopping the nice guy is not about not pleasing women. Actually, you're going to find that the women around you are going to be happier when you stop the nice guy syndrome. People around you in general are going to be happier. And it's gonna you're gonna find that people are gonna trust you more. You're gonna be happier, and life is just gonna get better. You're gonna become more successful. What do I mean by this? Well, the nice guy syndrome doesn't mean becoming an asshole or mean for the sake of being mean. It means becoming real. It means becoming honest. See, nice guys are nice to a fault. They're nice to a fault. That's what I want you to understand. What does that mean? It means that they're nice to the point that they will give up their own wants, needs, and desires and pretend to be who somebody else or whoever the other person needs them to be, or say yes to something they really don't want to say yes to, just so they can get the other person to be happy, so they can get the other person to feel good. Because if in their mind, what makes them happy is when other people are happy. And that's true. But if at the slightest inkling of somebody else being unhappy with you or disagreeing with you or having a difference of opinion, especially a beautiful woman, a superior at work, somebody like that, you get nervous and you start building fear and anxiety, that's abnormal. Because then you won't speak your mind, your truth. You'll start supplicating, complying to theirs, trying to change your idea a little bit to fit into their idea so that they're happy. And there's nothing wrong with massaging something a little bit so that if the massage works for both of you so that it fits, like, oh yeah, I see a way that this can work for both of us. But to do it to just get a good response, to get the tension out of the conversation because the tension's building for you, and really the tension is probably building for you as the nice guy more than for the other person. But that tension builds, and your first inkling is, I don't like the tension. It's causing me to go into fear, anxiety, worry. I got to get rid of it. How can I make you happy? An example of this is somebody asks you to help them move this weekend. And maybe you had plans this weekend to spend the weekend alone. And you really wanted a weekend to yourself, and you wanted to go hiking, and you wanted to go out to the beach and maybe take a surf lesson or something like that. And this person comes up and is like, no, I really need your help. You're not doing anything. It's okay. You don't have any major plans. You can come with me. But you do. You have made plans with yourself. And so guilt builds up inside you. Frustration. You don't like the tension. You feel like you're going to let this person down. They're going to get mad at you. They start feeling your uneasiness and they start feeling your weakness around saying no, you're like, well, I did have planning to spend the weekend alone. Oh, well, see that you could do that another weekend. And then pretty soon they can feel your nervousness, so they start poking harder because they feel they can get you to say yes. And in that, you end up building a little resentment towards this person. Maybe you do go help them move, but by the end of the weekend, you're frustrated, you're angry, you didn't get your break, you've got more resentment, and it kind of divides you two even more over time. Maybe it was a beautiful girl. Now she loses more respect for you because she can feel that you're frustrated. You're doing it just to please her. And sure, she's going to take advantage of it. I knew and dated a girl that didn't like nice guys once for several years, actually. And she was awesome. She was amazingly sweet. But if she ran into a nice guy, she said, if he's going to give me an inch, I'll take it. If he's going to give me a mile, I'll take it. I'll take whatever I can. And she was like, I'm just going to push it all the way to the end. If he's going to be like that, I'm going to take it because I don't respect him. And that was really interesting to me because most of the women I date aren't like that. But it was really interesting she said that because she was also the opposite of that. As soon as he stopped being a nice guy and started telling her the truth and what he really wanted, what he believed in, what his needs and desires were, even if they were different than her, she immediately respected that. And she immediately showed respect and integrity and all these things that you want. But because he couldn't do that, these guys couldn't do that with her, she saw it as an opportunity to push, which is very common with the feminine. So the nice guy is nice to this fault. You know, I don't know how to say no. I don't know how to set up boundaries. I don't know how to say this is what I want to do, especially if she's beautiful. If she's beautiful and I'm standing in front of her and she says, oh, I want to go to this restaurant and you don't like it, all of a sudden you're like, well, yeah, that could be all right. Let's go. Yeah, that sounds like fun because you really just want to spend time with her. Now, if you really don't care about the restaurant and you're like, yeah, let's just go have some fun, and you really do just want to spend time with her, and here's the caveat, saying no to her would be just as easy for you. You know, I could easily say no to her. That's, yeah, and maybe even try it to see how you feel. Do you get really uncomfortable when you say, no, I'd rather go to this restaurant? Because you shouldn't. That's abnormal. You should be able to say no. You should be able to put boundaries. You should be able to draw your line in the sand. Say, this is what I'll do. This is what I won't, no matter how hot she is. And that's where you start to earn respect. Because then when you're giving, when you're nice, it's coming from a place not of fear, not of wanting her validation. It comes from your power. It comes from your strength. It comes from really wanting to be giving. And you may not realize it, but she can feel the difference in those two guys. You speak different. Your tone's different. Your subcommunication's different. The way you feel to her is literally different. And so that's really kind of the core or the crux of the nice guy syndrome. So I'm going to jump to the next question. You said a few things in reference to nice guys. Why do nice guys, why, this question was miswritten, I think. So I have to interpret what he meant here. Why do you say nice guys aren't actually nice? And that's a good question because nice guys aren't actually nice. If you've got the nice guy syndrome and you're being nice, you're not, then what's happening is if I'm being nice to you to get something, is that being nice? If I'm saying, yeah, we can go to that restaurant, and you really hate the restaurant, you don't want to go there, but you just want to spend time with her, but you're not going to tell her the truth. No, I'd never tell her that because then she might not want to hang out with me. Or you feel uncomfortable about going to the restaurant, but you're going to hide it and push it down. Like, I don't want to go there. It's too far. It's too expensive, whatever it is. But I'm going to push all that down. Yeah, let's go. And your voice raises and all that, and she feels all that. He's nice to get something in return. And it's nothing wrong with being nice to get something. I'm even going to say that. I'm going to say something I don't usually say. There's nothing wrong with even being nice in hopes that you'll get something in return. You do go out on a date in hopes to move something forward, or to figure, really you're going on a date to figure out if you like this girl, because if you don't like her, you should be walking away. But if you do like her, yeah, you're hoping it moves forward and something happens and eventually you have romance and sex and all the great stuff that goes with that, and you like each other. But the difference is if you're attached to the outcome of getting something, you have to have it or you're going to be unhappy, you're going to be sad, you're going to be upset. There's the problem. So nice guys are assholes in reality because they're putting on a fake persona, not being honest about their own wants, needs, and desires to get validation from women, to get something. So they're afraid of her rejection. That's why we say that they're, in a sense, lying to her. And if you were to take her out and go to some place and be nice because, look, I really like this restaurant. Let's go here. This is a great one. And you're like, and I'd love to spend time with you. And you're really honest about that. And all that's congruent. Now you're being nice in a congruent way from a real place. You're not afraid to tell her no. You're not afraid to tell her, I don't like this, or I don't want that, or I wouldn't do this. And that makes all the difference in the world. It feels different to her. So that's why we say nice guys aren't really nice. They are often lying about stuff, and they don't even know it. A lot of nice guys, there's a lot of you out there right now, because I was one, and I would swear, oh, no, 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 I really do mean it. This is what I really want to do. And when you look deeper at this, you begin to realize I don't mean it. That's not what I really feel. As a matter of fact, I've been lying to myself for a long period of time. And that honesty, that level of honesty, what it takes to start breaking the nice guy syndrome. Matter of fact, if you think at all as we go through this that you are a nice guy, you really need to start to understand this a little bit more so you can start letting it go. And there's a really good book called No More Mr. Nice Guy by a man named Glover. And it's a powerful book on the nice guy syndrome, and it breaks down the principles of the nice guy syndrome. And I'm going to have him for an interview one of these times. I want to get him on here for an interview, contact him. Met him several times, really great guy. And I was a screaming nice guy when I started all this work. Matter of fact, when I first read his book, I was emotionally massively moved by it because I was such a nice guy. It hit like every button inside me, and I had to really take a deep look at myself and start breaking that up. And a lot more happiness has come into my life since then. So can you do me a favor, Cairo? That book is on my bookshelf in my room, in the smaller bookshelf. And you'll see it, it's yellow. It says No More Mr. Nice Guy, just so I can show it to them. Thank you. So next question from the same person. Why would a woman prefer an asshole or a first stage man over a nice guy? First stage man is the guy it's my way or the highway, right? Like, this is how it works, is I'm king of the castle. And so you could say that the guy could be very loving from that place. He could be like, yeah, this is my castle. I'm going to rule it. I'm going to make everything perfect so she's happy. And in that, he's overly controlling. So thank you. So we call him the first stage man. Third stage man is integrated the best of the nice guy and the first stage man. Second stage is your consummate nice guy. It's the guy who starts to learn to feel and have emotions, but he hasn't learned to ground himself yet. So he's afraid of all the tension that comes with it. And he's starting to kind of wake up. And then the third stage, he's grounding. He's got all these ability to access emotion and feeling and relate from a deep level, but he can also ground it, say no, and put down his foot when he needs to, because he doesn't take the emotions personal. So that's a short version of that. Now, why would a woman prefer the asshole? Now, in first stage, you also get your assholes. It's my way or the highway. Get the fuck out. Bad boys, gangsters, bikers, people like that. And it's really simple. The nice guy, again, is lying to her a lot. He's not being honest with her. If you had a woman look at you and say, what do you want? Let me please you. She's really nice. I went on a date with a woman like this a while back, and it was horrible. And she's like, oh, what do you want? Oh, you really like that? You like massages? I'll give you a massage. First date, 10 minutes in. I'll give you massages. Matter of fact, I'll give you a massage right now. It's kind of her attitude. Everything I said, she agreed to. And I was like, Jesus Christ, what do you like? Who are you? And I was getting that sense of a nice girl in front of me to the extreme. And so if a woman starts to want to have sex with you to please you, that might sound great, especially if you haven't had a lot of sex. And her whole goal is, what do you like? Let me give you a blowjob. Let me go down on you. Let me do this to you. Let me do that to you. And she's trying to figure out what makes men happy, and she's reading every book on how to make you happy. And then another woman comes along, and let's say she's a little more selfish. Let's say she's a little more first stage in the woman, and she's like, oh, I'm picky about the men I date. And you're kind of sexy. I like you. And then she starts to like you more. And then she starts to push you away at the same time a little bit. She's like, I like you, but I don't know. I want to wait a little bit and see. There's something about you. And she starts to play a little bit more. And then let's say she reaches a point where she can't take it anymore and she wants to have sex with you. And now she's going down on you because she can't get enough of you. She wants you. She wants to feel you. She wants your body against hers because it feels so good to her. And she can't get enough of holding you. Then that's very different than her just wanting to please you to get validation. Do you see the difference there? So the asshole, when he looks at a beautiful woman, will say something like, oh, I want you. You're sexy. And she knows he means it. He's not afraid of the tension. He's right in there. He'll tell her no, no problem. So when he says yes, he means it. You are fucking hot, and I really want to get to know you. Nice guy is getting rid of all the tension all the time. And he's like, I just want to come over. Hi, my name's Brian. You're really pretty. And, I know you're busy right now. And I just want to tell you, I think you're very beautiful. And I want to take you on a date. And then you show up with a date and you got flowers and I'm going to take you to a nice restaurant. What's your favorite restaurant? And you feel like there's no tension. There's no play. There's no dance. There's nothing. There's no way to seduce in this because he's so compliant all along that she has no way of knowing if he actually even likes her or just needs her as a beautiful woman to validate him, to make him feel good. So her whole job becomes, I just walk down the street so he can feel good about himself, even though he's being super nice. So some of these women, because guys are doing that, the way the universe works, and I don't think the women realize is, yeah, they'll hang out with these guys. They're really nice. They usually won't sleep with them. They won't do anything with them, but if the guy's going to take her places and buy her dinners and try to impress her, they'll take it. Because on one hand, she's hanging out with him, and that apparently provides him value. And on the other hand, he's paying for it, so that gives her value. And she gets to tell him about all her problems, and she gets to tell him about the guys she's having sex with that broke up with her, and she gets the new guy she likes, and he'll just listen to it all, hoping that one day she'll realize that he's the guy, the right guy. I've done stuff like this, so this is long before I learned all this, but I've done stuff like this. So the book is No More Mr. Nice Guy, and that's, oops, turn it over. That's the cover of it. Dr. Robert Glover. You can go to nomoremrniceguy.com. That'll give you a breakdown of it. To break it is a little bit of work. So let's jump on. Let's go on. So this is a really long one, so I'm going to have to break it down. Let's see. So I'm in a weird predicament. I'm a nice guy in a lot of ways that you describe, and yet people are intimidated by me. Apparently there's a disconnect between what I present to the world and who I actually am. That's common. People think I'm really put together, like I know something others don't. That's common too with nice guys. And that makes me intimidating to people. But I'm a nice guy, maybe to a fault. So if I'm ever approached, I come off as too nice, and that's boring to people. But I almost never get approached. And when I do the approaching myself, women are intimidated to know what to do or say, or don't, or it doesn't go anywhere. What's the solution? Well, it's basically the nice guy syndrome. Everything you're describing. Nice guys do often, really well put together nice guys look like they have their lives together. They typically get up to somewhere in middle management, can't get any higher, because you can be nice up to a point in middle management, but as soon as you start to get up higher than that, where you really have to do the hiring and the firing and make the tough decisions and lay off people and all that stuff, the nice guys can't handle that level of tension. So they look pretty good on paper. He's got a nice car, he's got his good bank account, he's doing everything right because he wants the whole world to like him. So he's really working hard to make sure he does everything right. But in that, he is boring, like this guy just said, because let's say that she walks up and starts talking to him. And I'm going to show you two different. So maybe let's say he's into sports. And she's like, and maybe she's into sports too. There's a lot of women into sports today. I run into it all the time. And let's say she's like, oh, what do you love? And he's like, I really love sports. Do you like sports? Oh, good. I'm glad you like sports. My favorite team is this. What's your favorite team? And you feel the eagerness and the want and the race in that. And oh, that's a great team. I like them. They're pretty good at this. And he's trying to say everything to please her. he's like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my God, your team was so good at this. And he's just being super nice, boring. Versus another guy, it's talking about the same topic. And she comes up and they start talking and she's like, what do you really like? Oh, I really love sports. And she's like, really? And she's like, I love sports. And he goes, awesome. And he goes, what kind of sports? They start talking, let's say they start talking football. And let's say his favorite team is let's say hers is San Francisco 49ers and his is the Raiders. And he's like, oh, I love the Raiders. And she's like, well, I love the 49ers. And he's like, oh, I don't think I can talk to you anymore. Suddenly he's pushing her away. There's a push in that. He's not afraid of the tension. He's not afraid of her getting mad. Your team sucks. And she's like, what do you mean my team sucks? And she's like, your team sucks. And they start going back and forth. They start having fun together. He's not afraid of rejecting her. He's not afraid of saying no to her. So he can play. He can play in a playful way. And then he can say, you know what? And later he can, and when he says, you know what? I think I like you. You're kind of feisty. There's something about you. She feels the tension in that. Nice guys are too scared to do this stuff. And that's on a light level. Maybe it's on a bigger level. Maybe you have to be, she starts pushing your boundaries and she starts trying to take from you. You know, you should buy me a drink. What? Why? And she's like, and I'm not opposed to buying a girl a drink, but if she came out and said that to me, and I have had that happen, I'd say, why? And she's like, well, you know, it'd be nice. It'd be a nice thing to do. And I've been talking to you a while. Also, and then I might say, so I have to buy your time. I have to buy your company. Is that what you're telling me? Well, no, and I'm not saying that. And you see what I mean? I might challenge her a little bit on that. And I might even say, well, I'm pretty good company too. Why don't you buy me a drink? And then I'll smile. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm not going to see a lot of guys, non-nice guys, when they're first trying to be non-nice, the first thing they do is they say, okay, I'm going to stop being nice. And because they get so uncomfortable with it, they haven't dealt with their issues under the surface. She says, oh, you should buy me a drink. And he goes, why? And he starts pulling back and he gets rigid inside, gets a little frustrated. And she's like, well, because, you know, I've been talking to you a while. What, I have to buy you a drink? And he starts to get mad. She feels the anger in the tone. Whereas I would just say it more naturally, calm, relaxed. I'd still stay happy. I wouldn't even let that bother me. And you see the difference there? The non-nice guy then switches because he can only be nice. And the only way he can stop is to pop into the polarity of being a total asshole now. That's why another reason nice guys are can be just assholes. They switch and then they feel guilty and they pop all the way back to the nice guy after feeling guilty because they took it too far. And so in that sense, the nice guy is the asshole, and that's why he gets this sense of intimidation sometimes. If he's trying to be cocky and he's no good at it because he can't manage the emotions and he gets stoic and shut off. Or if he's really being weird and just too nice and she's bored and she's trying to shut off on him and he thinks he's being intimidating. And because I've seen that too, where the nice guys just keep talking and they're not connecting or hearing or listening or feeling or emotions, because a real conversation is an exchange of emotion and feeling back and forth. So she's sitting there talking, oh, you know, and he's talking and she's like, yeah, uh-huh. She's just like looking up, uh-huh. And he's like, wow, I must intimidate her. Well, maybe you're actually boring her. You know, that could be it too. Or it could be that you're putting on the stoic, I'm not going to be a nice guy. And then now you're pushing her back in your tone, in your energy, in your emotions. And so those are two sides of that. So you got to really work out what's underneath the nice guy. The fear of tension. That's why I always talk about tension, getting good with tension, playing with tension, dancing in tension. Because once you start to get good with tension and you get rid of the fear of the sexual tension, you get rid of the fear of women, whatever's coming up. A lot of times it's fear of intimacy, fear of sex, fear of things that go with intimacy. A lot of guys that are a nice guy had a lot of either inconsistent parenting or abuse. There's a lot of reasons that cause it. And so you need to really start taking a deeper look at that. So, next question. I come from a place in life where I would literally get beat up for doing what I wanted. How do you get over that inner fear? It's a great question because that's very common. A lot of nice guys come from that. And to you out there that maybe didn't come from that doesn't sound real, but some people come from very abusive households where the dad or the mom or both people in the family are like, this is the way it's going to be. And they're beating the child all the time when he doesn't do what they say. Or maybe the neighborhood's that way, or their brothers are that way, or everybody's that way. And they end up growing up, you know, a little scared, walled off and protected from people. And I was kind of in that. I didn't have the physical abuse. We had a massive mental abuse, attacking, going back and forth. And I came out walled off and shut up. And so you have to learn to start feeling emotions again, start getting comfortable with tension, start getting comfortable with emotions again. You have to start doing processes to work on that. And, doing releasing processes. We talk about, there's a great book called Letting Go by David Hawkins. It's a great basic book on releasing and working through a lot of these emotions. But you have to start developing emotional intelligence, which is a term in psychology, to start understanding your emotional relationship to what you really are. A lot of us can't relate to our emotions anymore. Well, men especially, we're shut down, we're walled up, we have our body armor on. You have to start undoing that. Now, that doesn't mean becoming sappy or needy. That actually is unattractive. So what it means is learning to feel these emotions and then learning to own them like a man. Be solid like a man in your emotions a little bit at a time, and to reclaiming more space and more space. And the more you get comfortable with emotion, including anger, fear, judgment, and you start taking it not at personal anymore, you start saying, yeah, it's just part of life. And you run into a judgmental woman that's maybe beautiful, it doesn't bother you. You're like, oh, okay. You begin to realize deep down inside that she's just protecting herself like you were. And she's judgmental because there's an insecurity inside of her. And she may be very sweet on the other side of that judgment. Most of us have something like this going on. So it's not even bad that she has it going on, because she probably doesn't even know it. And you're like, oh. And because you don't take it personal, you don't get reactive to it, she starts to drop it around you. And if she drops it, she starts to get more real with you. And there's a nice connection between the two. And so learning to get in touch with those deeper emotions. I think what we'll do, Kyra, what if we do a little bit of, continue this nice guy next week, and we'll do a little bit of work on going through some different emotions, with processing some different emotions, talk a little bit deeper about that and in relation. So you got fear, and you probably got lust, you got different emotions like this. So we'll talk about these different emotions and how to process them just a little bit. And maybe we'll talk to some people and take some more questions too, because I want to get through this list today. So, so this next person writes, I get how to not text like a nice guy, and now to occasionally brush off plans. See, he's turning it into a technique here, which I don't agree with either. But when hanging out or talking with girls, what kind of things should I do not to be the nice guy, create that tension, or come off overly kind? And so if you're looking for specific techniques, I'm not going to give you any, because like, excuse me, I keep touching that. Okay, if you're looking for specific techniques, I'm not going to like say this, because it really doesn't matter what you say. It's more about how you do things. So it's the sub-communication, the way you're being. And so that's what you want to start developing. So a good example, I was talking to Zan Perrion about this on a webinar just last night, is you could practice saying less and working on communicating more with your sub-communication, relaxing into your body, asking your heart to open, feeling your gut, feeling your legs, and just like say a lot less, say as little as possible. And ask simple questions. Focus on how your eyes are connecting with hers and the tension between you and her in the eyes, and then relaxing it. You got to always relax into the tension. Your voice, is it rising up, or can you relax it a little? Not force it down, but relax it and start speaking right to her. Hi, what's your name? Looking into her. Oh, interesting. You might even try just saying basic things a little bit. So where are you from? Interesting. And then enjoy her a little bit. Practice enjoying her. Literally, I mean, like, can you feel a sense of enjoyment in front of this beautiful woman? And you might try walking up and just saying hi or hey. And then sitting in the silence until she speaks, so you can play with the tension, just waiting for her to deal with the silent moment. Now, if you get really awkward in your body when you do that, like you get really uncomfortable, it's going to feel awkward to her. The more you can relax into it and just enjoy the silence, the more she's going to get intrigued by it on average. There's always the exception, but on average. That's another example. You know, if your gaze if you don't have those, like you want to ask your friends, are your eyes overly penetrating? Then you want to soften them a little bit. Like if they're like really pushing, soften. If they're really wide and kind of there's not a lot of focus, bring them in a little bit and look into her eyes a little deeper. Little things like that. And then playing with pauses, talk with your hands more, listen. But instead of listening to her words, can you feel her emotions when she speaks? So these all involve playing with tension and feeling emotion. And that's where the real conversation's had. That's a skill set that's developed, and that's what we teach here at Fearless. If you really want to get in-depth instruction on it, of course, we got videos that go through some of the sub-communication and the basics, and we got two videos on tension, so watch those especially. But also, if you get to one of our live events, you'll see demos. And if you get to a workshop, you'll actually get to participate with all our models actually doing this stuff for real. There's so many 1%ers that go into this. And maybe we'll also do a live webinar where I go through some of the 1%ers just to give you some basics. I think that would be another good one, Cairo. Because I really want to help you guys to get it through the video too, as much as I can. And some of this stuff is just so hard to communicate through video. And that's why you guys are always asking for a specific sentence, right? Like you could just walk up. Like when I first started, I would call girls trouble all the time because it worked. I would go, hey, you look like trouble. And I just say that to different girls until it hooked. And why would it hook? Because by nature, it has tension in it, right? But I could easily release all the tension from it. Like, oh, hey, you look like trouble. And that's not as good. Or it's okay. It's not bad. Probably that's how I did it too. Or it could be like, hey, you look like trouble. And that's not as good either. Or it could be like, hey, you look like trouble. And then I could just sit and kind of play with that and enjoy it. So playing with tension is, you can say words that automatically cause tension, but you have to relax into them too. You have to enjoy those words. You know, you can say, hey, come here. I want to talk to you. That'll create tension right away. Versus, hey, come here. I want to talk to you. You feel the difference? And so that difference is huge. So playing with the subtleties, and it involves, you got to always feel right down the front of your body. If you can't feel open and relaxed all the way down the front of your body, that's what yoga usually is trying to teach. Then when you speak, if I wall off and I shut all this off and I go up into my head, and the more I get up here, I'm going to try to tighten up again like I used to be. Get up here, start pulling my energy up. Hey, you look like trouble. You feel the difference? All this is cut off down here. You can't feel it. So as I start to open that back up and relax down the front of my body and start to lock in a little bit more, and I'm using myself in the camera here, and I say, hey, you look like trouble, or something like that. It looks a lot different, doesn't it? And then that's what nice guys are afraid to do. They're afraid of feeling all their emotions. They're afraid of all that tension. So they go back to the tension releasing high up here where they don't feel anything. So let's see. How do I deal with people that use guilt to get their way and use that to your advantage? And mainly family members. So my family used guilt a lot. That's what created the nice guy syndrome in me. It was the main tool to control the whole family. And first thing you got to do is become aware of what guilt feels like and when people are using it. And that's number one. And then don't do what I did, because once I became aware of the guilt mechanism and how I was being controlled by it, the first thing I did was start getting angry at it and fight it. I would yell at people that did it, I'd get mad at my family members that did it, and I get and start fighting back, and it just doesn't work. It just creates a bigger problem. So what I did was I started to learn to not take the guilt personally. I started to let go of my belief that the guilt was even a bad thing. That's just what they learned to do. Somebody taught them that, probably their family members, and that's the only tool they know. That's where their consciousness is at. I'm waking up because every generation is going to start to realize more, hopefully. And I started to see, and I was studying all the time, and I started to see it for what it is. And so as I started to let go of the ability to be controlled by guilt, and then the anger at people for using guilt, I just stopped playing. So as soon as they would use guilt, I would end the conversation nicely. Oh, yeah, gotta go. I'm not gonna, but I was actually fine with it. I even think I said nicely, you know, I'm not going to do this anymore. And they were like, what? I said, well, if you use guilt, I'm just going to leave the room or I'm going to end the conversation. But I didn't say it out of anger. And at first I did get a little bit of a fight on that one. And I left, came back. There was another fight. They started to yell at me again, the person I'm thinking of. So I left again. And I was just like, I stayed calm and I just kept clearing my body out of all the anger that would come up from it. And I come back, hey, how you doing? I'd be nice again. And that person that I'm thinking of just at one point stopped. And then she would try to do it in text. And I just wouldn't respond to the text that had guilt in them. And I'd respond to the ones that didn't. And I'd be very loving back. But I would never respond to the part that had guilt in it. I just wouldn't dance in that energy anymore. And in a sense, I was retraining them how to talk to me and teach me for me to respond. And it took time. I had to be patient. I had to be loving in the other end of it because I did love this person. And eventually that person just stopped treating me that way. Still treated other people in my family that way, but stopped treating me that way. And it would come up every once in a while, you know. And I would see it again a month later or 6 months later. And I'd be like, okay, just process it out again and we'll deal with it. We only have 16% on the battery, Cairo. I only have 16% on the battery. Can you grab the plug? You mind? Thank you. So that's how I dealt with that. And it worked really well. And that was many years ago when I was very young. And it's only gotten better since then. I've learned a lot on not taking things personal anymore too. Not that that never happens, but it's always a learning experience when it does. So the next issue, I've had an issue with taking tension on since being one of the bad kids in elementary school. I feel that different methods of taming my behavior as a youngin' has turned me into a nice guy. And since then, I've regretted not standing up, speaking when I truly should have. Another speech, another, I would say aspect, I think is what he's saying here, aspect of this is the friend zone. How can I overcome this without going to jail or losing my life because the nice guy in me has now overwhelmed the stand-up guy in me? So I'm assuming what he means by going to jail is going to the other side and being such an asshole or such a bad boy that he takes things way too far, which is actually not an uncommon image that I get clients and they think if they stop being the nice guy, they're going to get in trouble. Like somebody's going to arrest them or something. And that almost never happens. I'm not a condoning. And now you're not thinking about physical abuse. You're not thinking about physically hurting somebody. That's what I'm talking about. That would put you in trouble. But speaking your mind and speaking your truth would not. Even arguing with people does not put you, you know, it could cause a bar fight if you're in a bar and you start yelling at somebody with a lot of anger randomly. So I don't recommend that either. What I recommend here is it's not about being mean or being an asshole. It's about being real, about being honest. And it's not about losing control of your emotions. So think of it this way. Every emotion has two sides of polarity. Let's say anger has two sides. One side is I lose control to it. It overwhelms me and I do something reactive to it. The other side is I feel the anger. I acknowledge the anger. I don't make it wrong. It's just anger. And then I do something proactive with it. And it's the proactive side of all your emotions that cause you to heal and grow out of the emotions, cause you to go to the next side. So if I get proactive with my anger, I might step into the anger, acknowledge it, and consciously do something to, if it's overwhelming, I might go punch a punching bag or beat a pillow for a little bit, you know, do what I have to in private, and then come out and proactively take the newfound energy to be really honest and clear and communicative with my conversation with people, not with the intent to be an asshole or get even, letting go of the need to be right with the intent to get resolution. And use the anger to face the part, to heal and face rather than run and hide or attack. See, the nice guy wants to run away. The guy that loses control wants to attack. But in the middle is the guy who stays grounded and solid, says, yeah, I'm angry. I want to talk about it. You know, it's really bothered me when you did this. And I want, you know, and I don't appreciate it. This is my boundary and I'm setting it. And then stick to that boundary, whatever it is. And it's learning to do that. Now, if your anger seems all consuming, then you need to do some work in that area. You could do some releasing work on anger from that book, Letting Go. We'll probably do some on here when I do some releasing on some anger processes. You could work with a professional in that area. You could come in and talk to us at one of our events, and we'll talk to you about where you're at. And a lot of people think their anger's really bad, and it's not nearly as bad as they think it is. I've seen that too. Everybody thinks they're going to lose all control, and I don't know that I've ever really had anybody lose control. But if you are, if you're at that edge, then yeah, you need to work with somebody that can teach you how to manage it without squashing it down. Squashing it down and getting is a form of getting reactive to it. And eventually, this is what every nice guy does, is there's eventually a point at which, like a volcano, it has to blow open, because you can only contain so much anger before it explodes on you. And then you attack everybody, you yell, you scream, you get in trouble, you do something reactive, and then the guilt and regret and shame kick up in response to that. Then you have to process all that. So learning to be more proactive with your emotions, acknowledge them, feel them, be honest with them, work them out, and then be clear with whoever you need to talk to is the key to that. Let's see, I haven't even read this. Oh, no, this is the last one. Okay, so that was the last one of the 7, because I started with the 7th one. I wanted to remind you of the 2 books I mentioned. One is No More Mr. Nice Guy. Hold on one sec. I'm going to grab that book real quick. No, still gone. So the 2 books, No More Mr. Nice Guy, turn it right side up, by Robert Glover, who I'd love to interview. And then another really good starting book for understanding processing of emotions and letting go is a book called Letting Go by The Path. I don't know if it inverts it there. The Path to Surrender by David R. Hawkins, also yellow and white. David Hawkins has passed away, so there's no way to interview him. He was an amazing teacher. Learned a lot from that man. If you haven't read any of his books, Power versus Force, books like that. So with that all said, I think we've got a lot of material we can even cover in future webinars. I want to find out what this has stirred up inside of you guys and what you're learning from this webinar, and see if there's any questions coming in. Do you have any over there, Cairo?
So, I mean, you've answered some of them, but can you make a distinguishment between why is it that women are attracted to bad boys versus the nice guy? Like, why do they feel more trust for the bad boy versus the...
Well, I got that. I went over that earlier, but I'll go over it again. Because we talked earlier about why women like the bad boy versus the nice guy. And I'm going to go over it again for anybody, because there might be people on here who just didn't hear me say that earlier, because it was at the beginning of the call, at the beginning of the webinar. Bad boys are more honest in a lot of ways. What it really boils down to. Nice guys are nice to a fault. They want to please. They're afraid. I was an extreme nice guy, so I can speak from this what this is like. But you get in front of a beautiful woman, you get in front of your boss, and you got to be really honest. How often do you say what you really feel or say what you really want? And how you can know, because a lot of you don't even know you're doing it. You're so embedded in it. I was so embedded in it, I didn't know. And so this beautiful woman says, let's go to this restaurant. It's too expensive for you. But part of you's like, oh, I can make it work. I'll do it. I really like her, and I want her to be happy. That's what it feels like. And you think you're doing it to be nice. But if I asked you, how does it make you feel not to do it? Then if you just said no, then all this fear, I might lose her. I really want to spend time with her. If that fear is coming up, that's the problem. If you weren't a nice guy, you wouldn't have fear about saying no. You wouldn't be afraid or nervous, or you wouldn't be uncomfortable. You would just say no. You say, no, let's go to this restaurant. I think this restaurant is a really good restaurant. I think you'll like it. And you would just calmly change your mind. And so it's not about being an asshole in that case. It's just about being real. But let's say, why does the asshole then be so attracted to a woman? Because he says what's on his mind. He may be a dick about it sometimes, but he says what's on his mind. They say, no, I don't want to go to that restaurant. Well, that's an expensive restaurant. What are you trying to, you gold digger trying to spend all my money? That's more of an asshole comment, right? Oh yeah, you're just a gold digger, aren't you? Look at you. And she'll go, no, I'm not. And he'll be like, yeah, you're a bad girl. You're a naughty girl. I know, it's all right. But when he says you're hot, she knows he means it, because he's not afraid of her. He's not afraid to say no. He's not afraid to say he doesn't like her because he's an asshole. He's not afraid to say, yeah, I don't like that girl. She's a bitch. And then he looks at her and he might say, you're fucking sexy. I like you. You know what I want to do to you right now? And she can really feel he's completely comfortable in the middle of all that tension as a bad boy. He can handle it. And the thing that a woman's genes or DNA is attracted to is a man that can handle tension. Now, there's a man that can handle tension can be nice or not nice. So I'm talking about the nice guy syndrome, not being nice. So a man that can handle tension goes all the way back to primitive times. In primitive times, if you were living in a little village and you were a woman, well, you had to pick somebody that could produce offspring that are going to survive, that it could protect you, that could build, hunt and get food and could protect and fight and could build shelter. That guy's got to be good with tension. He can't be afraid of the world, and he can't be afraid of you, and he can't be afraid of handling difficult situations. And if she runs into a guy that's always trying to please, oh, she's trying to make everybody else in the village happy and her happy, and he doesn't want to push any boundaries, he doesn't want anybody upset, and he's running around. What are the chances that he's going to be a good provider? There's a point at which he's going to burn himself out. He's not going to, nobody's going to respect him because he doesn't ever say no, because he tries to make everybody happy. And in that, who suffers? The people that are closest to him, because those are the people that get the brunt of his, when he does lose control and get angry, those are the people that get the brunt of it. And it's out of control anger. When he doesn't follow through on stuff, which he can't because he's doing too many things, they're the ones that he doesn't follow through on a lot of the times because they're the closest to him. So he's not even safe because he promises things, can't follow through because he doesn't have the time. He's trying to make everybody happy. So it's this guy that's good with tension. They can say no. They can say, I like you. They can say, I want you. Say, I want to do this to you. They can, because see, the bad boy is going to be way better in bed too, because he's going to take her. He's going to have fun with her. And she may burn out on the bad boy because maybe he breaks up with her and breaks her heart and cheats on her. Then she goes back to the nice guy. Then the nice guy is boring and he never tells her what he wants. And maybe he's cheating on her too, but he's too nice to say anything. And he's constantly hiding it and he's pretending everything's perfect and complete denial. And then she's just like, she can't win anywhere. And what you really want is the combination of the two. The guy that's so grounded and solid that he can handle tension and chooses to be nice because he likes to make her happy, but also can say no to her and isn't afraid to say, no, I'm not doing that. And he will sometimes because, they're never going to agree on everything. And he's not afraid to challenge her. He's not afraid to tease her. He's not afraid to give her some shit once in a while and really tell her what's up. And that makes her feel safer because now she has a man. So any other questions?
There's an interesting one here. I sometimes wonder if I'm one of the few or many guys in this world that has hated or have strong resentment towards the gender role that guys always have to be initiated.
So I sometimes wonder if I'm one of the few or many guys.
Yeah, has hated or strong resentment.
Who has hated or strong resentment towards what?
Towards the gender role that men have to be the initiators all the time.
The gender role that men have to be the initiator. So there's this, and I've heard this one before too. A lot of times men really resent having to be the initiators, the caretakers, the providers, and they think that women have it easy. And there's, like everything, there's two sides to every story. That's called law of polarity, and polarity always exists. And so if you go back to primitive times with men and women, women didn't have a lot of freedom. Men had the freedom to go do what they wanted, but then the men had to provide and had to take responsibility. And so again, women were contained and protected, and because they bore offspring really, and they raised them. So we had to protect the women and children because they were the future, and the men went to combat. So they both had their roles. Men on one hand maybe were out in the world more, but they also were more vulnerable to respond. They had to take on more responsibility, and they had to risk their lives more in a lot of ways. And then women risked their lives through childbirth, and then they had to raise the children, and they were kind of trapped in the house for years. And so men resent the responsibility part is really what goes on. But what they don't realize is that responsibility is freedom. And in modern times, all that's changed, by the way. But still, there's still an aspect of some of that still lingering. But the key here is that men still have to be in a relationship, often have to show a sense of tension management skills when they first meet a woman. Stepping into tension, leadership, containing, and even throughout dates and through their time together. Maybe she's really good at it and running her business, but with him, She wants to see him do it so she can surrender into her feminine for him, so she can be his feminine. She's trying to do this for you on the date. And this is what guys don't see. They think that women have all the power, especially if they're super sexy, because everybody wants to cater to them. But if she's falling in love with you, she wants to do all the work that she's doing to be sexy, like exercising and taking care of herself, or putting on all the things she does to be extra feminine for you, to make you happy. If she cares about you at all, that's what women want to do. And what you don't realize is that responsibility is freedom. And I'm going to add a word to that. Well-managed responsibility is freedom. The more you can manage responsibility as a man or as a human being, even as a woman, the more freedom you have in the world. So don't resent the responsibility. Embrace it. Learn to like it. An example of this is Richard Branson. Richard Branson has managed more responsibility than 99% of men in the world. He has $7 billion. He owns his own island. He travels around the world. He can do whatever he wants. He can spend the rest of his life living on a hammock. And he has all this freedom to live because he's learned to manage and systematize responsibility. And in that, he's an enormous container for all kinds of stuff. So if you are resenting being the masculine, you're resenting and pushing away the ability to manage and handle tension and responsibility. I used to be like that. I resented it too. As I got more into handling more tension and more responsibility and starting learning to love it, it made my whole body happier. I began to realize this is fucking awesome. And I like it because I go out and I get adventures and I live life and I make things happen and I move things around. Whereas before I was too depressed to care about any of that. You might even be looking for a woman to do it for you, which some nice guys find. They find the woman will manage it. In the end, it usually doesn't work. The woman will take on the masculine, the guy will take on the feminine, and they kind of create this relationship together. And then maybe the polarity is like 50-50, and then maybe she takes a little more masculine and she eventually begins to resent him and he begins to feel emasculated, and then he's upset about that. So on neither side can he win. If he doesn't do it, he feels emasculated. If he does it, he doesn't want the responsibility. So what he really wants to do is check out of life. And neither of them is a win-win. Now, a lot of women are very good at creating containers and taking on the masculine today. That's why they're leaders of companies and leaders of industry. But most of those women, I would say 90%, still want to be the feminine in their relationship. They want to get all dolled up for you. They want to work hard to look beautiful. They want to spend twice as much time, making sure they look and feel radiant for you and move for you and dance for you in a specific way. And that's what makes that's where they're putting in a lot of time and responsibility. They also want to manage, be like this energy or conduit for emotion and subtle communication for you, which is what you've got to learn to see. They're doing a lot of the work too, and taking care and nurturing and healing. And so there's a whole other aspect to the feminine on that side. So as you learn to respect the two sides, you can learn to play in this polarity. Now, some people don't believe in this kind of relationship. They believe in a 50-50. Half masculine, half feminine, men and women. We're balanced and we come together and we create a good partnership and we take on whoever needs to take on whatever. Problem with that is it works, but it doesn't usually create for good sex or sexuality or sexual intimacy. It creates two friends living together. You need the polarity for turn on, for attraction, for long-term connection in that way. And so you got to create that polarity some way, shape, or form. So which side do you want to be? And that's really what it boils down to. If you really don't want the responsibility and you want to be the feminine, you want to be the beautiful one, like Brad Pitt's got a beautiful energy. Angelina Jolie had a more masculine energy in a lot of ways, but she was a gorgeous woman. Then when you look at those two, go find a woman that's more like that wants to take a lead and see how long you like that. And they're out there. So anything else?
You cover why is the nice guy syndrome very common today?
Why is the nice guy syndrome very common today? No, I didn't cover that. Because the world has changed so massively since the beginning of the 1900s. Before that, the world was pretty simple. Men created the containers, and the men were providers and protectors, and the women raised the babies, and they were the nurturers, and they were the multitaskers in the house and making sure all these things were taken care of in the household. And And then around 1900, the industrial age hit. Women started to demand the right to own property and to vote. They wanted more freedom. They wanted more power, which they deserve and should have. I'm not going against that at all. And so they started to claim all their masculine is really what started to happen. They started to say, I don't need you. I can be my own masculine. I can handle my own stuff. I can take care of myself. And men got a little lost in that. And in that, men started to say, okay, I want to explore myself now. And so throughout the 1900s, men started heading in that direction slowly. And then by the hippie movement, men were really exploring and figuring out who they were. And so ever since then, we've kind of been in this second stage where men are exploring their feminine side, for lack of a better term, their emotional relationship, which is really what it is, to their emotions, to their feelings. And women have been exploring their masculine side. Now, a lot of women today really don't want to be the masculine. They've explored it, they can do it, but they want to primarily live in the feminine, at least in relationship. And a lot of men really would prefer to be in their masculine. It feels so much better to them, but they've explored their feminine. This doesn't mean we let it go. This means we now integrate the two. Women can now relate and respect the masculine so much more because they can do it and they understand what goes into it and the work that goes into it. Men can now understand and relate to the feminine because they can feel their emotions more. And so when they come together, they're a more complete whole. And so the man, like the left or right hand, can be on either side, but he chooses that masculine. And the woman can be on either side, but she chooses that feminine, at least, I don't know, a percentage of the time, more than 50% of the time. They might switch here and there, and that's fine. But most of the time, he's in his masculine, she's in her feminine for the most of the part of this dance. Unless they're a reverse couple. And so it all started with that. And that's kind of, I kind of gave the quick answer to that, but you can see how that whole dynamic happened. And so I always say we're kind of in the middle of it still. We're still going through it. And it's a great place to be. I used to think of it as, oh, it was a problem. But now I realize it's what we need to have happen to get to the third stage, which is where I think couples are going to be the happiest and the healthiest. We got any others? Okay, it's been an hour, guys. I hope you enjoyed this call. And ladies, I hear we got some ladies out there now. And I got a question from a lady last week. I want to hop on the last video and answer that question. And so, again, we invite you to comment. We invite you to subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, to get your questions in if you got questions. And not tonight. We're done for the night. And to get on next week's webinar, we have this every Thursday night at 6 p.m. And we're going to start doing different topics. And they're gonna to really inform you guys and teach you guys. Now, I also want to remind you guys about the Fearless Man Live, that it's a live event that's coming up. What weekend is it again? Remind me, I always forget. March 25th and 26th. It's coming up pretty quick. It's a live event done right here in Los Angeles and Santa Monica. Right by 3rd Street Promenade, close to the ocean. So if you're not from the area, I recommend you consider coming out. It's a beautiful place to hang out. You get beautiful women everywhere, beautiful beaches, beautiful area. We got a great room that we're going to be having the event in, and we want to get as many guys out there as possible. So the current price is $297, and it's going to be going up within probably the next week or so, closer to 500. And so I encourage you to get in now. Now, we talk a lot here about stepping into tension. If you really want to understand what I was talking about and have been talking about over the last few days, you want to understand how to step into tension better, you want to understand how to change your life in this way, then get out to this event. It's a no-brainer. We're going to have women models, we're going to have on stage going through demos of this stuff. I'm going to be able to talk to your questions directly and answer them directly versus, because I can't see what your sub-communication is. I can't see the tone from what your question's coming here. But when I'm there, I can. And we can do demos of a lot of stuff on stage, and we can really get more in-depth and more personal with this stuff. So if you're on the fence about this, I highly suggest you just dive in and do it. Step into the tension, because real change happens once you're in the tension. And the moment you put that money down is when you're in the tension. That's when your life starts changing. Thinking about it is an avoidance of tension. Thinking about it is an avoidance of tension. And that's an avoidance of change. It's an avoidance of growth. So don't let yourself be what I was for so many years, a keyboard jockey, just reading about this stuff. I had to reach a point where I was in so much pain that I knew I was going to take action and not stop anymore. And I finally reached that point, and I did it. And for $300, this is a life-changing event. And you come on out here to California if you're not here already. Check it out and meet me in person. Meet the crew in person. Meet Dave in person, my partner. Meet some of the women that we have working for us, and let's have build a memory and have an adventure. With that said, the link is in the chat box, right? So check below for the link and to check out the event and to get signed up. Get signed up right away. Don't wait. Don't think about it. Dive in. Make it happen. And with that said, I'll see you in the next webinar. Don't wait till the price goes up though, because and don't wait for the price to go up then ask for a discount. Get in there now and do it. And I'll see you in the next webinar, and we'll dive in a little deeper. Okay. So remember, only the confident really live. Take care.